Welcome. Thank you very much, Dr. Norwood and Dr. Burke, for bringing us together. And I'm very grateful to be joined by critical members of our team. And if we were complete, it would just be many members of our community, local, regional, statewide, national, and around the globe. And at the heart are children. And for now, we are so grateful to be gathered by those who have brought the wisdom and commitment and love to help us start our work together. We are going to first do an introduction where we meet each of our members. And as we discussed this morning, how critical it is that it starts with in building relationship, deep trusting relationship with others. And will be led by Ms. Eva Paulino, and then Mr. Abe Doctolero will speak about the systems changes in the school to bring about the deep relational strength. And then we will go to curriculum and instruction with Dr. Davidson. And at the beginning, we will hear from all of us, also the key and frontline critical partners are community leaders, and those would also be Ms. Betty Lai, who will offer a brief introduction of herself, but comes to us as family advocate of Oakland Head Start, and Miss Nan Lee came to us as a community leader with the San Antonio Neighborhood Network, and then became, to our great gratitude, a handwork and teacher aide and community advocate. So as we always do, we live what we teach, and as we do with our children, we start with our verse. We're going to do it now in 3 languages. Please rise if you are able. And we will do it in English, and then in Vietnamese, and then in Cantonese. And then our circle will be open. And I will start in English. And there's always movements. Head, heart, and hand is important that we move. It's important that we cross the midline. That is, we know now from brain research how important that is for building the synapses between right and left brain, meaning that we are engaging our hold, our synthetic, and our analytic. It is also giving us joy. This is our school, and please follow my gestures if you are able. Let peace dwell here. Let the room be filled with contentment. Let love abide here. Love of one another, love of humankind, love of the earth, and love of life itself. Let us remember, as many hands build a house, so many hearts make a school. I go now to the Vietnamese.
Do you want to calling in and respond or just speak the Vietnamese?
Yes.
Just the Vietnamese. Đây là trường học của chúng ta. Hãy sống hòa bình ở đây. Hãy để căn phòng tràn đầy mãn nguyện. Hãy để tình yêu tồn tại ở đây. Tình yêu của nhau, tình yêu của nhân loại, tình yêu của trái đất và tình yêu của đời mình. Chúng ta hãy nhớ, như nhiều bàn tay xây dựng một ngôi nhà thì nhiều trái tim tạo thành trường học.
And before we do Miss Betty, Miss Emma, would you be able to read the Spanish, please?
Esta es nuestra escuela. Que la paz habite aquí. Que el salón de clases se llene de satisfacción. Dejemos que el amor permanezca aquí. Amor de unos a otros. El amor a la humanidad. Amor a la tierra. Amor a la vida. Recordemos cómo tantas manos construyen una casa. Asimismo, muchos corazones hacen una escuela.
In Cantonese?
Yes, please.
這是我們的學校，與和平住這裏，與房間留滿滿足感，愛留住這裏，彼此相愛和知愛，大地之愛和對生活本身的熱愛，與我們住。由於有很多人防止所以很多人心中有一所學校。
It is with this kind of a symphony of languages where our children hear their own and their neighbor's language that we open this circle at our school and we open our gathering today. We said this will be burning questions from participants and then sharing critical tools. Are there burning questions to begin with? Then please share them now. Otherwise, we go into our first tool, which is with Emma Paulino, and we first hear from each of the presenters what brings them to the work.
No questions yet.
Thank you. Then I would like to go in turn and ask first Miss Emma Paulino, just a brief, what brings you to the work. Then we will go in the order of speakers to Mr. Abe Doctolero, then Dr. Connie Davidson, then Miss Betty Lai, and then Miss Nan Lee.
So my name is Emma Paulino. I'm the director of organizing and leadership formation at Faith and Action East Bay, which is a member of PICO, People Organizing, People Improving Communities Through Organizing, I'm sorry. So what brings me to do this work is that I really believe that I have gifts that I'm a person of faith. I believe that I have gifts that God has given to me, has installed in me, and those gifts need to be shared with others. In terms of, building the good will for the people in our community. That's the reason why I'm here today. And that's the reason why I'm doing this work. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Abe Doctolero.
Hello, everybody. I am Abe Doctolero. I'm the former Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services at Pittsburgh Unified School District. After a 45-year career in public education, I found myself coming to this work some years ago with EDA after we had done some Southern California work on resilience and underserved populations. At the time, I was very, very keen and continue to be keen on bringing the community school model into a public setting. When Ida approached me with her very ambitious plan to start the community school for creative education, it was an irresistible pull to actually bring everything that I believed in terms of having the school provide a full wraparound service to a community to fruition. And so somehow, some way, she talked me into becoming the first board president. And together we laid the groundwork for what has become a very successful and unique community school in a neighborhood in Oakland, which reflects the great diversity and the need for this kind of innovative education. And I've enjoyed the work. I continue consulting with Ida now and again. I've got her convinced I actually know something, which is something of a trick. But in any event, I'm very, very thankful to have been associated with her and this school, and I'm glad to be here to share whatever I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abe Doctolero. Dr. Davidson.
I too, like Miss Emma, I feel that what I do as an educator is because this is what God put me on this earth to do. I have a purpose, and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I come from a corporate background, and at 40, I decided to become a teacher. So my entire passion is that every single child has the opportunity to have opportunities. They deserve a quality education where they can say yay or nay to whatever those opportunities are that they face in their lives. I am also a partial product of the Oakland Public School System and a full product of the private school system. And I can honestly say that neither of them served me well. I can say that when I had caring teachers, which were few and far between in those spaces, they made all the difference in the world. So my entire second part of my life journey has been to change the way teachers teach, one teacher at a time, because I cannot stop the behemoth of the traditional system, but I can be a disruptor. And so when I talked to Edith on that Sunday morning, I just knew it was Easter. So, hey, God's still talking to me. So we have had this relationship ever since. Her work is exciting. It was something new for me. It was where I wanted to go. And having the conversations and learning about Waldorf in general. I didn't know anything about Waldorf. The Waldorf Astoria is a hotel in New York City, and that's all I knew. But I learned about Waldorf. I took classes from Waldorf. I visited the schools. And as a artistic learner that never had the opportunity to be taught using the means of art to communicate and to express yourself, that was one of the things I really enjoyed about the Waldorf model for the organic way that it nurtures the entire child. And its vision of including the child, the school, the community, the parents, all as part of what it takes to not only change the child, but change the world around the child, is something that I am totally in favor of, and am spending this latter part of my career making sure that as many times and opportunities that I have to push that agenda forward, I do it. And so I'm here today because I want those of you who are thinking about doing this journey and making this type of Waldorf-inspired school where you are, there are things you just need to know so that you can at least avoid some of the pitfalls, but can also identify the successes and failures and learn from the failures and celebrate the successes. So I'm kind of a nuts and boltsy kind of person. And so that's my conversation with you today. And I love you, Ida.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Davidson. Miss Lee?
So, hello everyone. So, the reason I'm invested to have the school open or the community, this is my priority from my life, for the rest of my life. So, I am the refugee. So I got a lot of help from the community when I just came to the U.S. So the community helps my family, especially my two kids. They are so successful in their life. So this is time, I think this is time for me to come out to help back to the community. And helping the community is my favorite. This is my priority for the rest of my life.
Thank you, Miss Lee. Miss Lai.
Yes. Hello again, everyone. Again, my name is Betty Lai, and I am a mother of two kids, 16 and 22 years old. I currently live in San Leandro, California, and my profession, again, is a family advocate with the City of Oakland Head Start since 2003. I have 17 years of experience in community relations, family social services, project management, and leading organizations. I hold a BA degree in early childhood education, but also completed the Waldorf training on emergency pedagogy in July of 2018. In addition to my experience, my background and identity as a refugee immigrant, a mother, first-generation college student, has also informed my work and passion to help others. I was a former CSCE parent and served as a board member since 2005 for 6 years. Since then, I was very involved in building parent engagement at the school level and was the chair of Parent in Action for 2 years, where we would meet monthly to plan for activities and fundraising efforts throughout the year. My biggest achievements were starting CSCE's first summer school that was launched in June of 2014. That year, we successfully enrolled 150 students from TK through 5th grades with a mixture of community school students and families from all over with an affordable fee to sustain the 5 weeks program. Today, we're proud to say that we were able to work with other agencies to run summer school and aftercare programs at no cost for families. I was also the founder of CSCE's Food Pantry in 2015 in collaboration with the Alameda County Food Bank to provide nutritious foods for over 300 of our students and families, as well as the Oakland community. Our work expanded and was acknowledged where we were awarded a capacity grant last year, close to $4,000 worth of equipment to run the food pantry during the time of COVID. My involvement also included the work to provide emergency intervention in December of 2018 to the families that were impacted by trauma in Chico, California, shortly after the Paradise Fire. Even though I ended my term as a board member last month, I continue to be involved with CSCE as a board advisor. However, my daughter Grace will be one of CSCE's board members to fulfill the role where she once ran a youth program at the school, leading a group of middle school students called Youth in Action. With her background in mass communication and public policy, I have good faith that she can deeply support CSCE's visions and goals. Thank you.
Many, many thanks to all. I feel like this would already be worthy, this kind of a circle of strength around our children. And with now, however, we're going to do some how to build up what we get a glimmer of here and where you get a sense of what we are building, continuing to build together. So honored by the voices at this table. And our first focus is now for Miss Emma Paulino.
So we are a faith-based organization that works around issues that affects the community. We are a multi-faith, multi-race, multi-ethnic. The center of our work is leadership development. And the main tool for us is relationship building. Everything we have been doing for 50 years in Oakland and now across the nation and doing international work in Rwanda, Central America, and Haiti is using the same tool that I'm gonna present and share with you today. And everything again is based in relationships building. The organizers in our organizing model is not, the organizers we are not the one who decide what people should organize around. We run what we call listening campaign, which means we sit in a one-to-one conversation, in a face-to-face conversation, where right now we are doing Zoom. But in the normal time, if I can say, we sit with people. And I'm just gonna share really quick around the structure of these conversations. So the person who asks or invite the other person to have a one-to-one with is the person who's gonna be there listening to people. And listening means really like putting your whole body, your whole mind into that conversation. So you will be able to do a few things. One is to start to build the relationships by sharing our stories. And I'm gonna go back to that part. Number two of that is, but the first one is really intentional conversation. It's not a casual conversation that I met somebody in the hall and we are chatting around wherever. This is a very intentional conversation, and always have an why. Why I'm gonna be meeting with Dr. Ida. And I do have the intention. That means I'm setting up the time with her And that means I'm gonna be able to sit with her for at least 30 minutes. And I'm gonna be going out there open to learn so I can start building a relationship with her or with him. In any case, I'm gonna be open to identify what are the concerns that the other person has. What are the priorities out of those concerns that she or he may bring to the conversation? And something that is very important for us is why? Why is this important? Why is this issue or this problem important for him or for her? And the why is coming from how does that affect your life or your community? These are really simple points, but are really critical. Because when you go there, you are prepared for that conversation and you are open to learn and open to identify what may gonna move Dr. Ida, if that will be the case, to act, to do something. Because I'm the organizer, I'm not gonna come to this conversation with the ideas about you should do this and that, or I'm gonna do this or that for you. This is about identifying the other person's self-interest and inviting her or him to move. Okay, so before I'm going there, but I just want to enter from that place because I want to explain the whole PICO organizing model. But this is the main tool or the main element of the whole 4 areas of the PICO organizing model are based on relationships. So anything that we move using this organizing model is the foundations, is the relationships that we build with people. So this is our organizing model. Again, it's very simple. So we start with the one-to-ones conversation where we share our stories, build relationships, and identify people's self-interest. And in fact, we do have a principles, what we call our principles, right? So one of the principles for the one-to-one conversation is self-interest moves people. And the other one is power is the result of relationships. The second part of this organizing model is doing research meetings. So why we do research meetings? Because when we have problems, when we are living in situations in our neighborhood, in our cities, we tend to believe that these are the responsible for that. These are the responsible for this. So these are the So there are so many people who are naming or pointing finger in different, whether it's the government, whether it's the police, whether it's the healthcare people, so there are so many players in people's minds when they identify issues affecting their lives. If it's education, is the school, the superintendent, the school principal, the teacher, you name it, right? It depends on the issues where people start to play ideas around who is responsible for this, for the poor quality of education, who is responsible, right? We do research meetings to understand who is responsible and how can we change that. How can we work together with the other partners or with those responsible to improve the quality of education around access to housing, healthcare, immigration policies, or you name it. So we do research meetings, and during this process of research meetings, we do a few things that are really important. We understand how power plays and how decisions are made. We build power with people, we build relationships with people and power. And we come more together with more clear understanding around really identifying who are those responsible. And we have another principle for that is going down and coming back smart. So when we go, it's not that we are dumb, but it's simple that sometimes we don't know what we don't know. So we always go to these research meetings with open minds. Maybe sometimes, you know, in my career as an organizer, almost of 30 years, I find out sometimes we met, for example, with somebody who represents the senator. Sometimes the people who is coming to this meeting has more information that the, you know, rep for that senator. Why? Because when people are on the ground, sometimes are much more equipped with a lot of information. So we kind of educate people around how those issues affect us and what could be done, right? So it's like we both learn, and again, we build relationships. That's really important part. And in doing that, we start to, you know, put more, our muscles are coming more stronger because we have more than in the beginning. The third part of it is running what we call a public action, a public meeting. So during this process, you know, the one-to-ones process are a continuous process. It's not that we do one round. During the whole process, we go back. So people who meet to do the research meetings go back to the large community and share with them. This is what we find out, right? So there is a group of people who represent the rest of the community and come back. So on the day of the action, I'm gonna give you an example that is recently, the last meetings that we had. One of them was around education. We brought 2,200 people to that large action. We had another meeting, many meetings around illegal dumping, the trash in our streets in Oakland. We brought 700 people at one of the meetings, 600 to the other one, 400. So we have been, you know, during the last 5 years working around illegal dumping. We have brought like almost 4,000 people to different meetings. What that means for us, we have power to change systems and to create new systems. And this is using this simple organizing model. And our, our PICO principle for this part is power is taken, not given. Right? And the other principle is control the agenda, control the outcome. So when we have these meetings, it's not the organizer, it's not the ED of the organization who runs these meetings. It's the community, the people on the ground who are suffering, who are struggling, who are demanding the changes. So our work, my job, is to empower them, to help them to discover their power, and to give the tools to exercise the power to make the changes. And the last part of these 4 areas is, people are not responsible for what they don't know, right? You don't know, you are not responsible. You cannot, we cannot hold people responsible for what they don't know. And another important principle around power is the ability to act. To me, this is one of the most really fulfill my imagination when I think about the ability to act. If we feel disempowered, we do not have the ability to act. Our community build the power and they have the ability to act and to say enough is enough, as we said in some of the meetings. And we evaluate. After each one of these sessions, we always evaluate what worked, what didn't work. So I just want to give you an overview around the PICO organizing model. I want to open up for a few questions before I go back to the one-to-one.
Emma, thank you so much. And I know for the sake of time to be able to hear everybody, this is so rich. So Kathy Norwood here, Dr. Norwood. This model is so, so powerful. And to see how you start at the one-on-one level and the ability then to eventually impact over 4,000 people and empower them and advocate and build up that inner voice is just incredible. I'm in the process of starting an international professional coaching school, and I really plan to access this and integrate this in based on the work that you're doing. So I want to thank you for that. My question is, what is the process you teach people to do to be ready for that one-on-one conversation where they can truly lay their agenda aside and listen at that deep level?
This is a great question, and this is where the real work starts, right? We invest. Let us say that today, before coming to this meeting, we just finished with Dr. Ida another meeting, right? We're gonna meet with the director of the Oakland Public Workers. We need to prepare an agenda. Dr. Ida and the team that is coming to this group, they already have the skills, the ability, they understand power and everything. And yet we still have to come and prepare the agenda, come up with the questions. We do not overwhelm people with so many questions. 3 or 4 questions, but they're key questions, right? In every single meeting. But the real work happened between after the one-to-one and the next step in this process, right? For example, in order for we call leaders, our members are leaders who lead the work, who do the work. And we're gonna do role play, Dr. Ida and myself in a few minutes. So you will see, but what happened is after the first conversation, if the person sees that there is interest in the other person in doing something, we invite them to participate. We invite them to whatever is gonna happening in the work that we are doing. Hey, join us, we're gonna have this meeting. You know, we don't try to recruit people, to force people, nothing. Because what is key in this process is self-interest moves people. So if I invite you to come to the meeting, you're gonna be there because you care about the issue. Yes, I was a tool to invite you, but the decision is yours because that affects you and your loved ones, right? Or the people you care about. So what I do, and I love, this is the beauty of my work. I love sitting with people and training them in a one-to-one basis. And we do trainings also in our groups. We do trainings locally, state, and national trainings for people who want to build up those skills, because these are very powerful skills, but you have to know how to use them. We don't go to one meeting with anybody without being prepared. And we do not invite a politician to a meeting where he or she don't know what she's gonna expect in the meeting. So what happened is we prepare the leaders, right, to understand, to discover their power first. That's the first part. They need to understand you have power. Some people need to hear that over and over and over and over. Because especially people of color, we feel disempowered. We are undermined, not one, every single time. Sometimes even in our own experience, in our life growing. By the society, sometimes even our own family, right? And by the politicians and by people, you know. So there is so many layers in how we internalize the sense that we do not have power. So I intentionally sit with people. I intentionally help people to discover you have power. You can do it. But it doesn't happen just because I say so. So what we do is, for example, if we have this research meeting coming, we invite one of our members that we call leaders just to share your name and who you are. And we train them in a one-to-one. And let us say that, you know, and this using the illegal dumping. I remember one mom who didn't want even to say her name in front of people. Not ever will dream about asking questions. or having the meeting directly with the mayor. So during the learning process with this work around organizing, she started by, sharing a little bit about how illegal dumping affected her life. And, by the next meeting, she was more ready to ask some questions that were kind of challenging questions. By the day of the meeting with the mayor, the council members, and the district attorney, she was the one who ran the whole show. A Latino mom who hardly speaks English, but here she was, exercising the power with the mayor and really challenging the mayor in a beautiful and respectful way. And I'm using just her as an example, but that was the whole group did the same thing. So we, lift up people by giving the opportunity a little by a little to see themselves and the ladder going up. And I can tell you one thing, when people got to what they say, one lady say, I found the green light, there's no red light for me anymore. So when people exercise power and live the experience, there is no way to go back. They can challenge anyone, whether, again, in our organizing work, we met, for example, with the new Senator Alex Padilla. The leaders, what we call ordinary people, were the one who ran the whole meeting with 400 people on the Zoom meeting. We met with the Senator, who is the Vice President, Kamala Harris, right? Same thing. Ordinary people, brown people, black people, people of, Caucasian people. So we form teams that we train. In a one-to-one session, we role play, we check their time. We have so much discipline in this work. It's 1 hour meeting, max. We have so much discipline. We believe that discipline in meetings is power. So we time people in each one of the roles, and the outcome of it, as people live, even if they don't get what they want, what they need, they live ready to come back to push until they get what they want. I talk too much, I know. So please ask more questions and let me know if this makes sense.
Maybe, Emma, we should do the role play and people can put questions in the chat, and then we'll see if there's one more so that we stay on time.
Okay, so Dr. Ida and I will do a role play of a one-to-one. I want you to pay attention to see if you capture something that maybe you, that helps you, that, something that you capture after my explanation. How much time we have? Because we need to make sure that is 10 minutes okay, or is too much?
I think, Dr. Norwood, are we, even despite this tech questions, we are still kept to 2:30, I'm sorry, till 2:35?
Yes, yeah, we'll bring complete closure by 2:35.
2:35. I think we have to keep it to 6 minutes.
Okay, so I set up the appointment with Dr. Ida. I don't know anything about Dr. Ida other than she's the school principal, the director of the school, community school. This is my first meeting. And let me tell you this, I'm gonna share a little bit about myself because this is how we credential ourselves. It's important, okay? So again, we are here. I'm gonna spend 30 minutes and 6 minutes, right? So, hi, Dr. Ida.
How are you, Emma?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for accepting my invitation. I hear about some things about your school, and I just wanna. Will you allow me to just introduce myself a little bit and to tell you who am I?
Oh, please. Thank you.
So I'm Emma Paulino. I'm an organizer with FEN in Action East Bay. I'm an immigrant. I was born and raised in Mexico. I came to this country when I was around 26 years, and I got married here with my husband, my Filipino husband. We have 3 kids, and all of them went to the Oakland public schools. So, I got involved because I was really concerned about my child, my second child education. And, I hope to have more time to talk about this later on. But I just want to hear a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I'm not from this country. I'm Dutch, and I grew up then in Germany, and so English is my third language. It was very scary to learn German and not be at my home when I was 9 years old and up. But I was very afraid of the Germans because they'd occupied my country and murdered my great grandmother and my grandmother, and so I'd always thought I never wanted to be with them. And there they were, my schoolmates and the parents of my schoolmates and my teachers. So very scary. And then I got enrolled in a Waldorf school, and it felt so. Eventually, I started to really trust because I was able to learn through art and beauty and relationship with a teacher who stayed with me for 8 years. And I felt very grateful. And out of that was that I wanted to have a school. I wanted to have an option that all families who feel in any way marginalized could create such a school if they chose, free of financial costs, to serve them and their community. So I'm so grateful to meet you.
Thank you so much, and I really hope to continue learning about, and sharing our stories. I believe that this is really powerful. I never would imagine that you was an immigrant, and imagine that you went through that traumatic experience back in your country. So, thank you for sharing that, and I'm really looking forward to continue building up into this. I'm here today because I was told by one of the parents at your school that there is some concerns that you have around, things happening at the, I don't know whether it's in the school or in the school area. So I just want to check in with you. I mean, how do you feel about this neighborhood around the school itself, the building, the whole thing?
Thank you. I'm so glad because I just came to school for our meeting now, and the school, we worked so hard to have it beautiful. I just came, and the whole garage, which we beautifully painted, was graffitied, and there was clothes littered on the front steps of the school, and the whole trash can was turned over, and there was a big garbage of dump and a big sofa dropped in the street. And it really hurts me because our children are coming back next week, and it's been such a hard year. It's so important that we receive the children and the families well, especially the ones who've been under such stress, that they would know this is a nurturing, beautiful place, not just safe but beautiful. So I'm just in absolute distress that there's this kind of ravagement here. And I know I go up on the hills and it is quite lovely.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm so sorry to hear that. That must affect the learning conditions and the teaching conditions for the teachers, right? It's the students, it's the parents and the teachers. So again, I'm sorry to hear that. Did you hear about these concerns from other people also in your school community, or it's just you? Or
We just did a survey at the end of the year. What is most on your mind as we come back? And the two really strong, they obviously want their children to get strong education, but the two big ones were illegal dumping and human trafficking, so that the children can feel safe and honored going to school.
Wow. So, would you like to do something about it, or you think you just will like kind of leave it there and continue? Yes,
I'd
living?
really like to. I don't know what to do. I know it's not just me, our whole community feels very committed to the school and feels committed to the community. Our neighbors suffer also, but I just don't know what the lever is.
Mm-hmm. Well, we can again schedule another time to continue talking. And also, I want to say, if it's okay with you, will you, have this conversation with other people and see they would like to do something? Because there is a group of people who are gathering together around this issue with the illegal dumping. And, the next meeting will be August 12th. So if you think there's people interested in this and you yourself would like to, we can again, I can sit with other people, have a one-to-one conversations. We are running right now what we call a listening campaign to understand better what affects people's life, and also, of course, invite them to organize and to do something. So if it's okay with you, can we schedule something for next week?
Oh, for us with some other parents who are
Yes,
interested?
if you can identify some other people, I definitely can come. You have conversations, whether it's one-to-one, so a small group of people, and you have this type of conversations, and they want to do something, I can give you more information.
Thank you so much. I know that next week they come back, so that would be, and it's going to be so burning on their mind. I would be happy to find out.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we're gonna stop right there. Questions, reactions. What? I mean, that was really, really short. There was no opportunity for me to ask the why, right? Why is this affecting? But it was really real that it affects her emotionally. And so, any questions, any reactions? What you think? Did you learn something? Did you see this as something helpful for you?
This is for the audience, a question.
Yeah, yes. This. Thank you, Dr. Ida. Yeah, this question is for all of you who were observing, listening.
And so the attendees, feel free to throw something in the chat or the Q&A, or we could even bring you on if you would like to come on and ask a question.
Well, if not, we really hope that this is a tool that maybe at some point you feel helpful for you, and some of the spaces where you are, doing your work. So I really appreciate that you allow me to come and to share with you. These are the tools that we have been using for 50 years, as I said, and I'm really proud of it because right now we are organizing in Haiti and Rwanda, and we have been invited to Tanzania and Kenya and other countries in Africa, and also in Central America. We are organizing there, and here we are in Oakland, also in the Bay Area.
Thank you, Emma. And there'll also be Q&A time at the end, and we are so grateful. And thank you, Emma. Stay with us, but now the spotlight goes to, so we did the organizing, we were able to start our school, but then how do we run the school? And Mr. Abe Dr. Lara will take it from there. And we refer you to the treasure chest for the 4 tools that Abe Dr. Lara will be discussing.
Hello, everybody. I apologize for not having those tools available electronically, but they're really 4 very simple graphic organizers. In the interest of brevity, one of the tools is just a cartoon of the well-known parable of 7 blind men trying to discover and describe an elephant just by touching each part of the elephant individually. I use that very often to underscore the fact that we often come to similar life experiences with different perspectives and come away with quite different impressions of what that experience is. And relatively speaking, to come to a school like Community School for Creative Education that's founded on Waldorf premises and that has wraparound services is quite a different animal than your normal public educational school setting. And so I use that tool just to let people understand that very often, even though we all went to school, we all didn't go to the same school and never came out with exactly the same kind of perception. And then when you're talking about trying to establish something new and something innovative, and trying very hard to incorporate community support for that particular endeavor, it's very, very important to understand where everybody's coming from and the fact that they're not all coming from the same place. I'm an old baseball player, and my favorite baseball coach, who affected my life tremendously, used to always say, first things first, catch the ball, then you throw the ball, but you can't throw the ball unless you catch the ball. Relative to the tools that I've tried to help the leadership of community school develop, one of the very most important first things first is the area of communication. Often taken for granted, equally often poorly executed. And when you're trying to establish a community perception of the benefits of this kind of education for the school for the students, I should say, and for the community, is so very important to have your communication skills finely honed, especially on the part of the staff, because they're the ones who are the conduits between the concept of community school for creative education and the actual execution of that particular set of concepts in reality. Well, one of the organizers has that I use is the 7 C's. It's a very cliche kind of approach to communication, but there are only 7 C's that really surround all the kinds of communication, verbal, oral, or written. And none of them can be omitted. It's first things first, always with the 7 C's. To be clear, to be concise, to be concrete, to be correct, to be coherent, complete, and most of all, especially when dealing with community, to be courteous, to make no assumption that your position, your drive, your ambition is somehow set you apart from the necessity of being courteous with the community and the people that you're trying to serve. Of those 7 C's, some of them are so obvious that we take them for granted, and we're pretty good about communicating as a school staff member to community, especially in the areas of being correct. We usually are good about making sure we've got our facts straight. We usually are pretty good about being concrete, that is, not speaking too much in terms of philosophy, but in terms of actually what is going on. We're not real good about being concise. We tend to go on and bring in lots of different pieces of information that do not actually help a community person unfamiliar with the new school to understand what is actually going on. We're certainly not very coherent. That is, that's attaching all of our ideas to how it fits into the community setting and all of the perceptions that the community may have for a new school. And most of all, we are very, very careful to be courteous. And sometimes in the effort to move something forward, we forget that particular C. To check yourself often in all of your communications around these 7 C's, I found in my experience really helps solidify trustworthy communication between staff and the community. Again, in the interest of brevity, moving toward the next set of concepts that I've tried to counsel staff at the community school around is the concept of who needs to know when. We very often have events, as in the role play, not a very nice event of illegal dumping on the front of the school. Sometimes we have very positive events like a fundraising or a gala or something that has to take place that's very festive. Very often we have traumatic events, something like accident at a school or some sort of negative occurrence. Regardless of the event, who needs to know and when becomes very, very critical, especially if you can keep all of your communications within those 7 C's. Obviously, the people who are first on scene for any event, positive or negative, need to be sure that they know exactly what's taken place and how to communicate what has happened with each other. Then the next circle has to do with those people that are directly affected by the event, whatever that event may be. So they are next in line to know what has happened, again, as completely and as coherently as possible. And finally, the parts of the community that are indirectly affected, as time goes on, they can be brought on board as to what has happened. Why is this who needs to know when so important when you're trying to establish community support for a new endeavor or continued support now for an endeavor that's gone on for quite a while? I would submit this, that everything that takes place in a community and in a community school in particular is of very high importance to lots of people, not the least of whom are the students and the families that occupy that school. And so what they need to know about what is happening that affects them directly is very, very important to have take place in a very uh, appropriate time frame, as close to the event as possible. If you're changing something as simple as when the school time starts or when the drop-off lane is going to be open for the children, they need to know immediately that that is happening in order for them to continue to support even the smallest change, the smallest event around their school. And as the events become larger and more impactful, so does the importance of knowing who has to know what when. And I would submit, in the end of the day, everybody needs to know everything right away. And so that's why I've always stressed for staff not to hold information tightly, but to share it and have it complete in a very, very timely way so that the community can feel safe and secure and understanding what's taking place around their school. The students absolutely need to know what's happening if they're directly affected given any particular event. And the final tool that I've used has to do with self-assessment around every staff member's strengths or weaknesses or areas of growth, not really weaknesses, in their communication skills entirely. Some of us are gifted and with good oral communication skills, and some of us are gifted with great written communication skills, and other of us are very, very intuitive and can use nonverbal communication and notice nonverbal communication cues very, very easily. My challenge to staff is to get out of their comfort zone. And if you're good about writing an email, but you're bad at one-on-one face-to-face meetings, work on becoming better at face-to-face meetings. You're already good at writing your email. How good are you at looking somebody in the eye and sharing something that's very important about their student, about the curriculum, about what's happening? And the reverse is true. If you're a real personable staff member and you get along with folks when you're in their physical circle, that's very good and that's terrific. How are you when it comes time to actually writing something down, like a procedure or a process that really affects the education and the processes that take place in the school? If you find yourself wanting there, take your own time to work on developing your written skills. The hardest of all is to notice the nonverbal communications that take place, the tone, the pace of speech, or the vocabulary chosen in a written communication, the body language when you're in a meeting with somebody, especially if you're not culturally attuned to what different cultural aspects of behavior may be. Sometimes it's not the very best thing to look somebody directly in the eye. Sometimes it's not the very best thing to get very close to someone's personal space. Then to understand what cultural norms and cultural comforts are in a nonverbal sense is an extremely important, obviously, but very difficult skill to develop. But my challenge for staff has always been to develop those skills with which you need some growth in terms of communication. If your communications are clear, concise, if they're concrete, correct, if they're coherent, and if they're courteous, if you're communicating with folks in a timely way, especially around things that affect them tremendously, and if you are keen on developing your own communication skills and become a better communicator from the staff perspective toward the community, I think these are the things that go a long way to establishing the effectiveness of that partnership and therefore the effectiveness of the service you can present to the students and the community. Um, in in keeping community school for creative education going forward, I think very deeply in my heart that these kinds of skills among staff especially are so very, very important and can never ever take a back seat to just the curriculum or just uh, what is taking place by the schedule. I think the communication of all of these things is very, very key to the continued success of the school. And I'm looking at the time, and I think I will succeed my time to the next presenter because I think we're running very close to the end now. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to be extremely succinct. The one thing that I think we can never, ever ignore is the fact that we have to have authentic and real communication. And there are a lot of things, and everything that has been already been said is what it should look like. So I'm not even going to go there. I'm going to just leave one tool. There's a whole lot you have to do in order to get a school up and running and functioning, and all the things that have already preceded me are some of those things you have to consider. I was primarily focused on curriculum instruction and teacher development. When you start a school like Waldorf, which is an extremely different model of what it means to teach and to learn, I think if you want to actually reach out to public school teachers who are already certificated by their state to be a teacher, you want to find the teacher that wants to be able to teach the children differently than they are being mandated at the present time. And they're willing and they're searching for that different thing. They're willing to learn it. They're willing to practice it. And because they already know the demands from the state, because those demands don't go away just because you started a private school or a public school or any other kind of school. You still got to meet those same demands. They already know those things. And that's the hardest part for someone coming the other way, because you get a Waldorf teacher and they're going like, well, that's not the way we teach. I'm not going to do that to those kids. No, I'm going to do that, blah, blah. And they have a lot of resistance, and rightfully so. I'm not negating the fact they have that resistance, but what you want is someone who's already a teacher, who has those qualities and says, I want to do things differently. And what I'd like to do is do what you do, because I like what I see. When you do that, you will lose fewer teachers. But if you start from the other end, you will lose a lot of teachers, and you'll have copious amounts of resistance, because they also have to get a teaching credential, because the credential they have as a Waldorf is a certification to teach Waldorf, but it is not recognized as a California teaching credential. So have them come with that already, and have them be good at their practice of what they're doing right now, and have them be willing to put in the work to become a superior teacher and to teach the whole child. So that's the one tool I'm going to leave you with, because I don't want everybody else to have an opportunity to say what they need to say as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Davidson. I want to ask if Miss Betty Lai, if you would like to add something.
Yeah, I mean, what just brought in about the communication, very important. Again, what I've emphasized earlier was the level of engagement, of parent engagement within the school. Communication is key. You just have to build that relationship with good communication to be able to have better outcomes.
Thank you. Miss Lee, would you like to add a closing word before we open it for discussion?
Yes, so yes, I agree with everybody. It's about the communication is very the key thing to communicate with parents, and also I am after the handwork teacher, so sometimes the communication between the teacher and the student, that's the key for me to just to find the way how to communicate with student. Just put it in the other words. So some kids they have the hard time, or they need some arts to create their learning. So we are there to help them with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thus far, the way we are harnessing community to optimally serve our children, we'd love reflections if there's no questions, the way we like to close is what we say, call it give one, get one. But first, we ask the attendees if there's something where you said, this really resonated with what I've been grappling with. I'm going to share it. Please share. If it's this really reminds me of something that I already saw well implemented, please share. But we'd love to hear from our attendees as well, so that all voices are heard in this space, because we're a learning community and on the journey together.
Thank you. So any additional thoughts or questions from the attendees? And Ida, I love your approach in moving ahead and how we'll close. But what I want to say is that this has been so rich for me today. And in the way that I learn, I go back and I take it in, and I've been writing questions like crazy. So know that these questions are coming to you. We're going to create all of these questions and we're going to send them out and make sure that they're in the treasure chest. The other, you're doing such incredible work and your passion is so evident, and it's coming from that place of authenticity that is impacting the world. It's impacting the world. I know even with the 95 participants that have signed up for this course and many more that are wanting to, that once they have time to listen to the work that you're doing, they're really going to be nourished, and probably many more questions will come. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you so much for showing up in the fullness of your power. And I turn it back to you, Ida.
Thank you very much. I would say that again. I think, can we ask if those who are on the panel, if you would be willing to share emails, then we will share them with the treasure chest so that people could follow up with any questions on the tools and the sharings. And we want to say that now that we've started to sit in a circle, we know we are on this circle joined together, and the journey has just begun. We have so much to do to serve our children.
And one additional thought from each of you as we bring that final closure. I'm not ready to let you go yet. I know I have to, but just that one final thought from all of you. This is so rich. Thank you.
So I want to start for the thought so I can get the thought in. And it's something that Edie and I were talking about yesterday. The way that we were able to make it work for the teachers is that we had an experienced mentor named Monica from the East Coast who came. And then you had me from California. And it was our consistent, continual conversation about what we were seeing in the classroom that has helped us to design practices for those teachers in the classroom. Because I'd come away and say, that circle took like 30 minutes. And she would go like, none of our circles should take that long. And it's like, well, that's good to know. So we were then able to figure out what is the teaching practice that we need to address here, because I wasn't a Waldorf kid, and I don't have that expertise. So we're both drinking water from different wells, but we combine the water to make some tea. And you have to have tea time regularly, and it needs to be sustained. So again, it's still communication, but you have to have those two experts talk together. So that those specialists, because they're the ones that are going to drive the way instruction is going to take place and develop the structures for that instruction on the campus.
Thank you, Dr. Davidson. And that would be Miss Monica Alexandra, who is an experienced Waldorf coach, and Dr. Davidson, who is there as a standards-based or experienced urban school coach. Do you want to pass it on to the next one, Dr. Davidson?
Go ahead.
Jump in? Can I jump in just for a second?
Please.
I just have to say, even though I'm enjoying retired life in Sonoma, my heart is always going to be in curriculum and instruction. And I just have to say thank you, Dr. Davidson, for your comments, because the magic happens when you have that connection between student and teacher. And your comments about the necessity for having a great teacher want to become greater resonates with me tremendously. And it is certainly something that is at the very, very heart of the success of the community school. Um, just keep finding those wonderful people who are just willing to take great and be greater. Thank you.
I'll jump into that. I do agree with a great school with great staff. We will have great families. Working with Head Start, I work closely with the school, with Dr. Oberman, in transitioning kindergartens, TKs, into the school. Oftentimes, parents ask about, well, what's the difference of a community school versus a Oakland Unified School District school? So then here I am, once I go through the Waldorf training, I learned about the very deep roots, what Waldorf is about. And I'll be able to explain to families the difference, so then they have choices. It's all about choices. Once families, know about the relationship with the community, the school, and all the stuff that the school are doing, the food pantry, the summer school, all that stuff are happening. We're bringing families in. We're not just serving the community families. We're serving the community with food pantry, with summer school, with just everything. The vaccine clinic coming up, that's happening with School Start. And so with the connections that we're engaged in with Miss Emma, with getting all these community-based organizations, working with them. So it's very, very crucial, communicating, relationship building, the trust, and just all of the above really makes things great outcomes.
Miss Lee?
Okay, so I just want to back with Miss Betty's about the building the church with the between the family and the student. The beside of we have the pantry, the food pantry at school, and then we have the committee in school, but also in our school we have the special handwork. So that's the way, that's a different way for the student. They can learn from there. So that our school we have the special arts for the student who need to find a different way to learn in order to improve their education.
Thank you. Miss Emma?
Close this part by, just saying how humble I feel to be, in this room, learning from your wisdom and all the love that each one of you put. I know how hard, I'm not an educator. However, I have been working around education for almost 30 years. So I always say the last job that I will do is going to be a school principal, because I know that it's 24 hours, 7 days, So I really admire every one of you, appreciate, and I know that you are transforming not only a child life, but the families and community lives, which is a huge gift. So thank you so much. And I'm gonna say in my own words as somebody with faith, I hope I'm not offending anyone, but may the holy power that you believe, however you call, continue blessing and providing the wisdom that you need every single day to continue showing with love every day, regardless of what you carry inside of your heart. So thank you so much.
Yesterday, I gave a presentation at an equity conference, and it was about how to be a culturally responsive educator. And one of the things I had to introduce to the teachers that were there, and this is all research based, and what was lovely is that Waldorf did it organically as part of who they are as an institution, meaning the Waldorf methodology for teaching and learning of the children. But it was important for me to explain to my participants that when you understand that 79% of all the teachers that are in classrooms, and this is data, are white middle class women who don't live in the San Antonio district of Oakland. What happens is they commute into a community and then they leave the community. What you have, and my questions were, how many of you have ever walked around the neighborhood? How many of you shop where your kids shop? How many of you have taken the time before school starts to make a home visit so that you can introduce yourself to the parents even before you meet the children? Because you must, if you are going to become a culturally responsive educator, which means you are looking at every single child for who they are, the assets that they bring to you, and their rich cultural wealth, you have to go beyond driving to a parking lot, getting out of your car, going into your classroom and teaching, and then going home, because you must understand the cultural lens of all of your kids. And one of the best ways to understand the child in your classroom is to talk to the parent, because that parent knows more about this child than you will ever know. You'd also want to build that relationship so the parent and you become team members. You are co-working so that you are doing what is best for that child. Then when you bring in the community and understand, where does the child eat? Where does the parent work? Where do they go after school when they're not doing regular after school programs? You can then develop your relationship, because you cannot teach whom you do not know. You must have a relationship with someone to actually teach them, because without the relationship, you can't see them. And if you don't see them, then what you'll do is what you've always done without understanding if it is good or not good for that child. So I just wanted you to know that what Dr. Oberman said is not just, this is what Waldorf does. We have an entire country now that is trying to do what Waldorf has been doing. And now they're going to workshops to understand, oh, I got to do this in order to teach the kid. Okay. So I just want you to know this isn't new. This has been thoroughly researched. So now we are bringing it into standard traditional public education.
You have a little video clip of a teacher who's also a parent, who also is in a master's program. So we're going to end with dreams and aspirations of one of our teachers. So beautiful. I love young new teachers that are so fresh and so energetic and so passionate about the work that they're doing with their children and with their students in the schools, as well as listening to her own dreams, wanting to be a reading coach, finishing up her master's, and then the beautiful dreams that she holds for her 3 different children. So today we moved together to rise up, and we learned that we stand up, we get taller, we fly, we get bigger, and we find our confidence. I want to thank all of you for being here today. If cognitive dissonance set in, know that that's a wonderful thing. That's how we learn. That's how we challenge ourselves. And in time, it sifts and we begin to pull the nuggets out for ourselves. So I know we're going to have a wonderful night of rest and relaxation. And I look forward to seeing you all in the morning.